Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, today we are going to start with the cardiovascular system. This is a relatively longer unit comprising of about 11 chapters from chapter 14 to chapter 25. These chapters will be outlining the mechanics, the physics, the biochemical aspects as well as the physiological aspects of the cardiovascular system. There will be some diseases that will be covered during the course of these lectures. So the cardiovascular system, as you all know, the functions of cardiovascular system, they include the transport of essential substances to the tissues. They remove the byproducts of metabolism. It regulates the body temperature, and also the cardiovascular system is responsible for humoral communication. As you can recall from the discussion on blood, that humoral communication means the transport of biochemical substances and hormones that mediate various functions of the body. Then it also helps in the adjustment of oxygen and nutrient supply in different physiological states. As far as the anatomy of the cardiovascular system is concerned, you all remember from your basic classes that the heart, as we have already studied in the unit of the heart, it consists of 4 chambers: right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. And there are two types of circulations, the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. So the pulmonary circulation, it accounts only for the lesser part, 9% of the total circulation, whereas the systemic circulation, it accounts for the major part. And again, in the systemic circulation, you can see that the maximum blood is present in the venous system, that is about 64%. The arterial blood system, the arterial supply, that accounts for about 20% of the total blood, whereas at a mean, if a mean is taken, then the heart contains about 7% of the blood. As you all know that the heart imbibes or takes in blood at diastole, and it gives blood at systole. So as far as the different pressures are concerned, you can see that these pressures, they vary from one part of to another. In the arterial circulation, you can recall from the cardiac cycle that starting from the aorta, the pressure, it undulates, it is changing between 120 and 80 millimeters of mercury. The maximum pressure in aorta is 120. The minimum pressure in the aorta in a normal person is 80. So this is systolic blood pressure, and this is known as diastolic blood pressure, and the mean is taken at about 100. In the larger arteries, the undulation is even more, the rise and fall is even more, whereas the waxing and waning of pressure, it reduces in the smaller arteries, and it is relatively constant in the arterioles. In the capillaries, the pressure, it still further reduces, and when finally it reaches the venules, it comes to minimum. In the smaller veins, the larger veins, and the vena cava, this pressure is about 0 millimeter of mercury. So practically there is no pressure in smaller, larger and larger veins, and the largest vein known as the superior and inferior vena cava. After passing from the heart, it is given to the pulmonary artery. So the pressure in the pulmonary artery, it again varies between 8 to 20 millimeters of mercury. It is 8 millimeter of mercury when it is in diastole. When the heart is pumping the blood in systole, it becomes 20 millimeters of mercury. Finally, in the arterioles and the capillaries and venules, it reduces, and finally it is brought back to a pressure near 0 in the pulmonary venules and veins. Now, as you see this slide, in systemic circulation, the diameter of aorta is maximum, and still when we compare it with the veins, the diameter of superior and inferior vena cava, it is about 35 millimeters. So it is much larger than that of the aorta. The large arteries, they have a diameter of 1 to 4 millimeters. The smaller arteries, they have, and you can similarly compare their functions, that the aorta is a function of pulse dampening. The pulse is the pressure of the blood flow that is generated after systole. So the pulse dampening is a function that is served by the aorta. Then the larger arteries, they have a function of distribution to the rest of the body. And finally the arterioles, they have a resistance functions, because the arterioles, they have pre-capillary sphincters, they have a resistance function, and the capillaries, they account for the exchange of the blood. Then we have venules, veins and venae cavae, which collect the blood after it is being transported to the tissues, and then it is taken back to the heart. So this is an overall function of the circulatory system. Now coming to the basic theory of circulatory function, this is very important to remember. There are 3 points of basic theory of circulation as given in your book, that is your Guyton. The blood flow to each tissue of the body is almost precisely controlled in relation to the tissue needs. This will be discussed in more detail in chapter number 17, that is about the local tissue control of blood flow. Number 2, the cardiac output. The cardiac output, as we will discuss in chapter 20 and 22, it is the total amount of blood that is pumped out of the heart in each minute. 5 liters per minute is the amount that is pumped by the left ventricle, and similarly right ventricle that also pumps a similar amount, 5 liters per minute. So cardiac output is controlled mainly by the sum of all tissue flow, local tissue flows. What are the local tissue flows? These that we discussed in the first point, that the blood flow to each tissue of the body is almost always precisely controlled. Now this is the local tissue control. Number 3, in general the arterial pressure is controlled independently of either local blood flow or cardiac output control. Now the next thing is blood flow velocity versus cross sectional area. Velocity of blood flow is inversely related to the cross sectional area of the vascular system. Now this is a very important point, just take an understanding that larger the cross sectional area, lesser is the velocity. As you all can see that if you have a given amount of liquid and you increase the diameter of the pipe, it will go slowly, provided that the fluid volume remains the same. So the second point is blood flow velocity is very slow in the capillaries, which have a very large cross sectional area, which makes conditions ideal for exchange of diffusible substances. Now here you can identify why this velocity of blood flow is inversely proportional to the cross sectional area. So in order to provide the capillaries an ample time for the exchange of the blood. Now the pressure difference of the blood between the two ends of the ventricles of the vessel is known as the pressure gradient, and the impediment to blood flow while it is passing through this vessel is known as vascular resistance. On the arterial end the pressure is higher, on the venous end the pressure is lower. The difference between these two pressures is known as the pressure gradient. And now the vessel itself offers a resistance, so the resistance is the impediment to the blood flow. Now this will have a very important important application later on. Here you can see that we can understand that Reynolds number is a number in which we are going to understand this particular concept. So as you can see in this diagram, that laminar versus tubular blood flow is the difference between the sequential blood flow and the disturbed blood flow. When the blood is flowing in its normal sequence, you can see that the blood vessels they have a property of resisting the blood flow. So the middle layer that has the least resistance which is offered by the vessels which are present and which is offered to the layers which are directly in contact with the vessel wall. So the layers which are directly in contact, they lag behind, and the layers which are in the center, they move forward. So this is the regular blood flow or the laminar blood flow. As the blood is a viscous fluid, it is not like water, it does not have watery consistency, so it is easy for the blood to flow in this fashion. As you all can remember from your early childhood memories, that whenever you have spilt honey, the middle layer, that was the fastest to move, and the central layer, that was the fastest to move, and the lateral layers, they were relatively slower. So now the turbulent blood flow, that is when there is a kink in the vessel. When you are watering your plants with a pipe hose, the lawn pipe, when you press it, you can see that there is turbulence in water. When the pipe, and it is not a rigid pipe just like the vessel wall, when you press it, there is a turbulence in the blood flow. So the same turbulence, it occurs in the blood flow in you and me as well. This extent to which the turbulence does occur is known as the Reynolds number. Now what is Reynolds number? The Reynolds number is V d rho over eta. Now this V is for velocity, this d is for diameter of the vessel, this is rho. Just to differentiate two d's, they have used the word, the Latin word, the Latin alphabet rho, in order to depict density. And this eta is again to differentiate between the two V's. So this is for the viscosity. So the more the vessel diameter, the more is the Reynolds number, the more is the chance of turbulence. In another fashion, when the velocity of the blood flow is higher, the Reynolds number is higher. There is increased chance of turbulence. When the density is higher, so again you can see the Reynolds number is higher. On the other hand, the viscosity is inversely proportional to Reynolds number. More viscous the blood, which occurs in polycythemia, when there are more red blood vessels, red blood cells, so the Reynolds number is lesser, the turbulence is slightly lesser. Now coming to the blood pressure, we will start this blood pressure right now, then we will continue it in the next lecture. The blood pressure is force exerted by the blood against any unit area of the vessel wall, whereas on the other hand, resistance to blood flow is the impediment to blood flow in a vessel. Resistance to blood flow, if the pressure difference between 2 points is 1 millimeter mercury and the flow is 1 milliliter per second, the resistance is said to be 1 PRU or peripheral resistance unit. So total peripheral resistance is rate of blood flow through the entire circulatory system is at a rate of 100 ml per second. The pressure difference from systemic arteries to the systemic veins, as we have discussed earlier, here, that from 100 it falls to 0. Now coming back to the slide, pressure difference from the systemic arteries to systemic veins, it is 100 millimeters of mercury. The total peripheral resistance, hence 100 divided by 100 or 1 PRU. When there is strong vasoconstriction under sympathetic control, the TPR is more than 4 PRU. When there is strong vasodilation, the TPR is 1/5, that is less than 0.2 PRU. And on the other hand, the total mean vascular resistance in the pulmonary system, that is the mean pulmonary arterial pressure is 16, the left atrial pressure is 2 millimeters of mercury, the net pressure difference is 14 millimeters, but the blood flow is the same, 100 ml per second. So the total pulmonary vascular resistance is only 0.14 PRU or 1/6 of that in the systemic circulation. Now, as you all remember from the lectures of physics in your metric, O levels and A levels and FSC, that conductance is the opposite of resistance. It is inverse of resistance. So the so more the resistance, lesser the conductance, and vice versa. Whereas it is directly proportional to the fourth power of diameter or fourth power of the radius. when the diameter is doubled, the conductance will be increased not twice, rather 2 raised to power 4. So 2 into 2 4, 4 into 2 8, 8 into 2 16 times. Now we will see an example that is given in your book. It is known as Poiseuille's law. The rate of blood flow is directly proportional to the pi delta P, that is the pressure difference, and fourth power of the radius. So the rate of flow is directly proportional to these four factors and inversely proportional to 8 eta. Eta is again viscosity. More the viscosity, lesser is the flow, and length of the vessel. More is the length, lesser is the rate of flow. So in this diagram you can see that when the diameter is 1, the rate of flow is 1 milliliter per minute. When it is raised by a factor of 2, the flow is raised to 16 milliliter, 16 times increase. When the diameter is increased by vasodilation by a factor of 4, so 4 into 4 into 4 into 4, it accounts to 256 milliliter per minute. So just by increasing the diameter 4 times, the rate of flow increases by 256 times. Now this is the similar thing that you have done in electronics and physics, that resistance in series is when you add up the resistance, it is simply an addition, R1 plus R2 plus R3 plus R4 plus Rn. That will give you the total resistance. However, when the circuit is in parallel, like in capillaries, the resistance is the reciprocal of the addition of all the sums of the subsequent vessels. So R1 over R total is equal to 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2. So when the circuit is in series, the resistances they add up. When the circuit is in parallel, the resistances they reduce. And what is the practical application of that? Effect of hematocrit and blood viscosity on blood vascular resistance and blood flow. So the normal hemocytometer that you have already done in your practicals, the amount of red blood cells that is about, or the hematocrit, that is about 45%, whereas in anemia this is reduced to 10, 15, 20 or 30, whereas in polycythemia it is increased from 45 to 50, 60 or 70. So when we were talking about this particular thing, the viscosity has increased, so the blood flow that will be reduced. Now the hematocrit effect on blood viscosity, when the hematocrit is increasing, the viscosity is increasing like this, and this is compared with the viscosity of plasma. Plasma was the blood minus the formed elements, and against the viscosity of water, that remains the same, like there is no effect of hematocrit. We are not considering hematocrit in those. So this is all. And now the last part, when the arterial pressure, when there is sympathetic stimulation, the vasoconstriction it does occur, and the arterial pressure it increases multifold. This we will study in chapter 18 and 19 separately. Thank you very much all of you. This is all from chapter 14. Now we will discuss subsequently about vascular distensibility and compliance in our next lecture. Thank you very much.